we bring in the co-founder of LikeFolio.com, Mr. Andy Swan, to join us. Andy, we've been talking about a bunch of names that don't really have exposure to Boeing, but as you know, Southwest Airlines is all in on Boeing and the 737s. What are you seeing in terms of any effect of that, if any at all, frankly?
Yeah, you're right. Boeing has, I think, the largest exposure to the 737 MAX. They have 34 of those in their fleet, whereas American Airlines has 24 and United has only 14. Delta doesn't have any. We do see some impact. I don't know it's necessarily MAX related, but when we look at LikeFolio purchase intent mentions for Southwest, what that means is people talking about booking flights through Southwest. We see that really nicely correlated to the stock price, and what's really concerning me here is at the end of the chart you can see this drop to new lows. And normally we do see a drop around this time of year, but it's normally not this big. And so we're seeing Southwest at some pretty fresh lows in terms of purchase intent mentions, while the stock is consolidating at pretty high levels. That's potentially a bearish opportunity on this company. There's a lot of things that go into a stock price performance on a company like Southwest, but from a consumer demand standpoint, we are seeing a definite drop off, and probably a lot of that is related to the flights that they've had to cancel, the routes they've had to cancel due to those 34 planes being grounded.
Yeah, and Andy, that data kind of goes against what we've been seeing as far as traffic numbers from a lot of the other airlines. Now, going into the winter season, us up here in Chicago, you always got to be wary because there's a good chance that your flight's going to be canceled, and this actually hurts their bottom line even more. So is there more trouble ahead based on your data for the stock price, which is still up, 23% year to date?
Yeah, of course, everything comes down to, the average ticket price, and the price of oil really impacts these things, which we don't necessarily evaluate in our analysis. What we're looking at is just pure, number of tickets sold, number of bookings accomplished. And for Southwest, that is considerably down. It's down year over year for the first time in a long time. And, they just have less flexibility with 34 planes grounded, at least through February of 2020. Southwest just has less options to deal with inclement weather and things like that. And so they're in a tough spot, and they're starting to pass some of the blame on to Boeing. It'll be interesting to see, how much this impacts things through the winter months. Like you said, I think probably Southwest is the one airline that's really, really hoping for a mild winter here.
Now, Andy, consumer happiness is something we talk about a lot with the airlines because, of course, people love to complain about the different airlines, and people love to talk about their experiences with canceled flights on Twitter and social media. So how does Southwest compare to the other airlines? I know Delta, I believe, is one of the highest.
Yeah, Delta and Southwest are both the two highest by a considerable margin, because most of the time people are talking about airlines, it's really not very positive in nature. And so right now we've got Delta and Southwest pretty much tied in terms of consumer happiness at 61% positive, with companies like United and American down around 50% or below that level. And so Southwest does do a good job of keeping its customers pretty happy. A lot of that comes down to no baggage fees, no refund fees, things like that you can change your flight really easily. So they're very consumer friendly. That does seem to be paying off and probably doing them some good as they have to cancel some of these flights and deal with the fact that they've got so many planes just sitting there on the ground.
Yeah, Andy, if you had consumer happiness just on the Thinkorswim offices, this thing would be driving towards zero, because we had a rough weather weekend here in Chicago, and there's some unhappy travelers getting back to work on Monday. But Jenny Horn, you've got some tweets. Well,
so that's what's so funny. People tweet like it's
I know.
Southwest's fault that there's a snowstorm in New York. It's so funny.
First snowstorm ever?
Yeah.
Is this your first time in snow?
I'd like to know the ratio of positive tweets to negative tweets for any airline, because usually you only tweet them when when
your flight's canceled or you lost your bag or something. Like it's as if it's Southwest's fault that there's inclement
It's 8-to-1 negative. That's the most positive it's ever been. It's like that.
No kidding. So our first tweet is from Tad, who says, 737 MAX returning to service in early 2020. Would you fly on the MAX? So Andy, I'm really curious because when it comes to the MAX, there's all these hypotheticals of when it'll actually return to service. But is there any fear with consumers that it'll not be safe once it returns to service? Because I mean, I see that all the time on Twitter.
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, you don't necessarily want to be on a plane that's known for falling out of the sky. I think that, and some of the pilots' comments are, at least concerning. I think when people see that even the pilots are talking about, please don't rush this plane back into service and things like that, you've got to take that pretty seriously. I know that on a lot of the aggregator sites, you can now sort by or filter out certain types of aircraft, and the 737 MAX is probably the one unchecked the most often. And so I think that it is a real concern, even when they bring these planes back, that people will be wary of getting on them or will not fill those flights up. And so I think that's a real concern for Southwest. We'll see. Hopefully they get these planes back in service. They're in good shape, and we see things return to normal. But it'll take until this time next year for people to truly be comfortable, I think, with these planes.
But Andy, my thought on this and my contrarian view on most things is that when this plane gets back in the air and gets certified, and remember, they're making it harder. Each plane has to be individually certified, so they're really making it a tougher road. Won't this be the most scrutinized airplane in the air, though, and probably the most safest airplane in the air?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think you're right. From an individual choice standpoint, I'd rather be, on the plane that has gone through every single safety check imaginable, and that, somebody really had to put their neck on the line to say, yes, this should fly, and a pilot has to say, yes, I want to fly this. I don't think that that's happening on some of these smaller airplanes. The U.S. has a really, really good safety record. I don't think that there's been any large airline crashes in quite a while, and there rarely are. So I think the consumer fears normally are very overblown, but how that impacts the bottom line is very real, and most people don't think like you, Kevin, believe it or not.
Oh, whoa!
I have to say,
I've been told that my whole life, Andy.
I agree with you. I think sign me up for 2020 737 MAX. I think it'll be the safest.
Me and Jenny Horn.
Plane. We'll be on that flight.
Jenny Horn and I, sorry.
Exactly. So our next tweet says, ugh, why can't Southwest fly everywhere? I hate literally every other airline. Of course, I had to find some positive. There is positive things on airlines. Tom does not believe in it, but there is positivity.
I like to fly Southwest if it's like an hour and a half flight or something, but I can't get any miles with Southwest. I've got to get something back for traveling as much as I have, and that's
good Lord.
Oh,
and remember, Chicago's a hub, so we've got the benefit to be able to fly almost anywhere in the world directly. So Southwest has got a big exposure here, but doesn't fly to a lot of international destinations either. So you got to take that into consideration too.
I don't like the way Southwest doesn't give you a seat assigned. I like to know what my seat ahead.
You got to know how to play that game, though. If you play that game right, it's very good. Although I've seen Andy Swan on social media complaining about exactly that topic on Southwest.
Yes,
Andy, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, it drives me crazy. You pay up for Business Select, and then 34 people pre-board before you can even get on the plane. It's like you're paying up to be the 36th person on the plane to pick your seat. It's the worst. It's just, they gotta fix that.
That matters too when you're as tall as you are. See, I'd like to have an assigned seat. I get it.
All right, we're gonna try to trade this thing. Andy Swan, co-founder of LikeFolio.com. Thanks for coming on, buddy.